All right, nice surprise in studio. I thought this was going to be a phone interview. Mike Noble, Noble Predictive Insights. It's good to see you.
Hey, great to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So, interesting stuff you sent me on polling data for presidential approval. And I immediately go to independent voters. I don't know how you classify them, but the not Republican, not Democrat, because largely partisan politics, you're already picking a side.
Correct.
But if you want to know how someone's really performing with most people, look at the independent voters.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at who leans right or who leans left, it's like 80% roughly the electorate. So it's a small group, but they're a mighty group because they're ultimately what decides the general election. Hence why we have so many shifts in presidents over the last decade or so. But when you look at, there's been a big change like with the independent voters. So Trump has some struggles with that group, which the recent Gallup poll, their national survey among U.S. adults, Trump's job approval among independents was only 29%, with 64% or 2/3 disapproving.
Is this overall, or is this driven by economic stuff? What's the driver of that number?
Oh, yeah, no. This is definitely when it comes to overall job approval. But he also has a bit of an economic weakness overall, where he only got a 37% approval on his economic rating, which is one of the lowest that Gallup has seen in their longitudinal tracker. And basically, Trump, it's a threat and an opportunity, which, you can't run on the economy when the economy is running away from you. So I think the biggest thing right now is that, if he can kind of this unique plan that he's doing, if that could start having an impact and voters see results by the midterm, could be fantastic. However, they're still seeing housing affordability as an issue. Inflation. I mean, everyone's raised prices. How many people have reduced prices?
And see, this is the unique thing about the Trump administration is when Reagan went into office, he had an 8-year plan like most presidents do. Mm-hmm. And so his 8-year plan, it took him he was not very popular in his first couple of years. Polling numbers were not good. But like you said, he turned that ship around and he won 49 states to get reelected. President Trump doesn't have that opportunity. He only has a 4-year plan. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't get it done in the first 2, if those numbers stay that way for the next 10 months, the midterm elections are going to be a disaster because he doesn't have that other 4 years to try to turn the ship around.
Absolutely. And Republicans don't have a large majority in Congress. And that's the thing is that if Democrats can land up getting, because the Senate, I think, is going to be a tough reach for Democrats. The map doesn't look great for them. And Republicans have a sizable edge on those Senate races. But the House, 100%. The House is basically the Achilles heel. And if Republicans land up losing that, it's going to make Trump pretty toothless in the last 2 years. So, but to your point, when people come up to me and say, oh, Trump, there's no way, et cetera. I'm like, no, you can't say that. Don't, put that out of here, because here's the thing. It all matters on where we're at then. I mean, he's got a plan. He's got a strategy. We don't know what the end result's going to ultimately be, but based on where that looks at that point, we'll know which way.
Well, and I handed you, before we went on the air, I handed you a story from the Wall Street Journal that actually says he's resilient and people are seeing him improving on the economy. So what you're giving is not an opinion. You're giving data.
Yeah, these are other people's opinions.
Yeah, but it's
not
data.
my opinion.
But it's data.
Yeah, 100%.
And so what you've also said is if he turns it around, if he gets the deal done with Europe, if he gets Mexico and Canada squared away, if the tariffs aren't hurting people, if we're seeing the job and wage growth, then these numbers the next time we talk turn around. But right now, people are saying this is not what we voted for.
Well, correct. They had the pain point heading into Election Day. They still have that pain point, but again, it doesn't turn overnight, a switch. So again, this is what we're tracking. But what I think was also really interesting, there was also a Pew Research, their annual survey that they did, which is basically one of the big things on net partisan shift. So how people are they identifying as Republicans or Democrats? And basically America's political center of gravity is tilted right. Especially since like 2020, there's a net 6-point swing from Democrats to Republicans. But if you were to even go back since 2021, it was 11-point swing. So basically in 2020, Dems had the wind at their backs. But, in 2025, it's Republicans with the tailwind.
And the reason why I like talking to you about the data is because it's counterintuitive to me. Because I'm just being honest, I'm an opinion person. In my opinion, I'm not. Yes. But that's what I mean. I'm talking about what my opinion is. You're dealing in data, which I like you bringing the data. But in my opinion, the direction we're going is a positive one. So I'm coming at it from a different lens. You know what I mean? So when I hear this and I see this, it makes sense if a younger person still can't buy a house, if interest rates are still at 7% for mortgages, people are frustrated that it hasn't changed. That doesn't mean it's not going to, but I understand when I read that where their frustration comes from.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's also something that's super interesting in there was the youth vote complexity. The youth vote in general, 18, 29-year-olds used to be very, very much Democratic, right? And they have been for a bit, but there's been a shift there too. And it's not that young voters aren't liberal anymore. It's that young men are Republican and young women are very Democratic. I mean, with men, it's young men, it's Republicans have plus 18 advantage compared to women, it's plus 21. But Dems still lead overall, but that gender split is just dramatic, which I think is very interesting.
When you look at that youth vote, have they broken down the drivers of that?
Well, yeah. I mean, some of the drivers is some of the cultural issues. For example, I think Trump, from the polling and research I've done, that he has the better ground when it comes to like, youth sports, transgender athletes, stuff like that, bathrooms, things like that. But then also I think the economic issues as well of what he's run on or kind of his plan and wants to do, like kind of that tougher approach. And so, but that's what you see is men, it resonates with him. Women, they're a little worried about it.
Yeah, and the battles in Washington are never going to end. It's always going to be Democrat versus Republican and vice versa. But overall, the voters, I think, are looking at results for them personally. So,
100%.
So an older voter is looking at, what are you guys doing with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid?
Yep.
A younger person wants to know that they're going to be able to pay for college and get a job.
Yeah, and buy a house.
And buy a house.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we see with like housing affordability, especially those that are younger, but also younger in like urban areas where it's a little bit more expensive. Again, they're looking like, hey, I don't want to rent forever, but they're like, oh my gosh, the prices. So again, and that's why this is helpful, because it gives you a good lens of, the different demographic groups, gets you out of your bubble, because in one opinion, you have a statistically representative sample of the population to help kind of see where you're strong, weak, and who's breaking and why. But I don't know, it's some interesting trends. So good news, there's some good news there for Democrats, and also good news there for Republicans. So
it's early, but I think it's great to get these snapshot pictures now. When do you start getting serious about the elections in Arizona, the governor's race, the House and the Senate, and the Democrats are always hopeful, but they've got some issues in their party, but the Republicans haven't, you know what I mean? But they're still there. It's still a very narrow majority for the Republicans in the House and the Senate and the legislature.
Yeah.
When do you start taking very serious looks at those races?
Well, two parts of that. One is start looking at seriously, like we'll track it, but it's really like right around early voting begins. I like to take a snapshot just before, like when the gun goes off in like a 400-meter relay race. That's kind of like how early voting works. You take a snapshot in the beginning of it. Then, of course, when you're getting towards the finish line, snap again. And then, using the months. So like what we got, July, August timeframe for the primaries, and then November for the general. And by the way, for the Democrats, I couldn't help but say it, is that Democrats right now, the big issue that they're running into is like that scene from Zoolander, where he's looking in the mirror. Derek Zoolander is like, "Who am I?"
Yeah,
and that's kind of them right now.
When do you do performance polls on the governor?
Yes, we do it every quarter.
Okay, and so what are Arizonans' feelings on our governor?
It's funny. They overall giving her a thumbs up. So she's anywhere from like +9 to +11. Her favorability is slightly higher than her, so her image is slightly higher than her job approval, but both are in the positive territory. And it's interesting with Democrat Katie Hobbs coming up on this midterm election, she's not in a bad position. Like folks will talk to you, they'll be like, oh, she's done for. I'm like, no. I mean, actually, she's in a better spot than most, especially in this hyper polarized climate, and especially Arizona being a battleground state. She's actually sitting in a pretty good spot. And not to mention, she has like $4 million cash on hand. She's got a massive amount of money over there sitting there. So if anything, I think I give her the edge right now in the governor's race. So, but she's doing a good job.
How much does which Republican winning the primary matter in that race against her? Does one have a significant advantage in the polling of being able to beat her, or right now is it just? It's
honestly, it's pretty close. I think what the polling doesn't show, and frankly, we didn't test it in there. It's like you kind of like gameplay it out or game theory it out, saying, hey, based on this candidate's background, position, etc., and these messages, how do they stack up? I mean, Robeson would stack up a little bit better if you were to game it out, but when just doing it on the surface level, there's really no statistical advantage between the two. They're both within striking distance. Hobbs is slightly ahead, but again, they haven't started telling their story, making their compare and contrast.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, the governor's race is going to be the race to watch. And I think that thing is going to be grab your popcorn. That thing is going to be just a knockdown, drag out fight. They usually are. And the Republican primary is going to be, I think, pretty vicious.
I know we're running a little bit late, but one last question is how much have you tested this at all? How much will they pick as a lieutenant governor partner? Because it's the first time it's happened in Arizona. How much will that affect the race? Do you think it will at all?
I think it's going to flay just like it does with the vice presidential pick. To be honest, is that everyone talks about a big game. Every time we test it, it really doesn't matter. I think really what they're there for is to be an attack dog or to grab sound bites, like to kind of test out messaging. I mean, I think it might help with, let's say someone grabs like on the Republican side or the Democrat, if they get like Pinell County Sheriff Mark Lamb, for example, who's strong on the border, et cetera. It's a key issue here. Or someone great on the economy, let's say like Congressman Schweikert, who's known as a fiscal hawk, et cetera. Those folks, I think, could matter a little bit on the reputation, but I think it's going to be nominal if best. And I think a lot of them are going to be like, wait, we have a lieutenant governor? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit to adapt, I think.
Always great to talk to you, man. I appreciate you coming all the way down here.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me surprise you.
Mike Noble, Noble Predictive Insights, joining us.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.